So welcome, Sobia, and I'll invite you to share your screen and start your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Helen. I will pull up my screen and you can tell me if you can see it. Okay. Is that working?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sobia. I'm going to share a little bit in depth about my process and a few other sort of threads that are part of the project that are included in the Silver Eye exhibition. The project is titled Devotions. I've been working on it for the past few years. Research for it began in 2022, but the actual work on the project started in 2023 and it continues to today. Devotions comprises of silver gelatin photographs, an artist's book, and a 16 mm hand-processed film called One Big Eye, which is a collaboration with anthropologist and filmmaker Benny Schaefer. And I'll share a little bit more about each of these projects, but before I start, I wanted to share a little bit about the forest that is at the center of the work. I heard about Pando, which is an interconnected aspen grove in south central Utah. In 2022, when I read a poem by the scientist Dr. Paul Rogers, and immediately I felt deeply connected to his words, and I could sense this reverence in the poem about Pando. And so, taking a step back, Pando is a forest of one tree, but appears to be 47,000 individual trees that spans 106 acres. So that green area is entirely one organism. It is believed to be between 16 and 80,000 years old, and it is one of the largest and oldest organisms on land. And its root system that makes it so remarkable is invisible to us. So I became really interested in all the metaphors that I found myself thinking about in my own work, somehow embodied in the forest, like the idea of interconnectedness and oneness, spiritual ecology, and entanglement with a more than human world. So I started researching Pando, and then Benny and I collaborated on a film project that I mentioned earlier, which took us in various different research directions. One of them included reaching out to Dr. Paul Rogers, who was the scientist whose poem I had read. We met up with him and interviewed him, and also learned about other kinds of advocacy happening to raise awareness about Pando. There's lots of different research going on about the halted regeneration. So Pando regenerates itself by sending up clones, and that process has been halted due to human intervention. So we followed scientists and advocacy groups on their trips as well. But ultimately, the work became not about all of these human-centered efforts, but really about an experimental ethnography of the forest. So One Big Eye is a hand-processed film that I was able to share in my thesis exhibition at Carnegie Mellon. So these are some install shots. The film centers roots and eyes as guiding metaphors for various ways we relate to ecology. Here's another install image. Viewers could sit on the cushions. We also did a live expanded cinema event called A Quaking Song, in which we projected the 16 mm film And the sound artist Jessica Fouquet, who we'd collaborated with the sound for the film, actually did an experimental live score while I did a storytelling performance in the form of a parabelle, weaving all the histories, folklore, legend, and science that we'd learned about during our research trips. I'm not going to share a clip from the film because it's very challenging with Zoom and audio, and so I'm only going to share a couple of film stills. Here are the eyes, and the forest. There is a legend of the Ute tribe that a forest of eyes is one big eye that gazes back at humankind, and it's really about reverence. So the eyes became a very central focus in the work in that way. In this image, you can see the hand processing, and that, based on the mixture of the coffee-based developer, it can leave various different kinds of textures and marks on the surface of the film. And I'll share a little bit about that in a second, but I wanted to say that it's a very experimental process that allows one to, or demands one to, let go of control. We process the film at home in the kitchen sink using coffee, washing soda, lemon juice, salt, vitamin C powder. This is how film is loaded on a tank. I like sharing behind the scenes photos because sometimes it's hard to sort of communicate what the process is like. It's a very domestic endeavor, and here you can see us making a bleach with peroxide and lemon juice, and I see our sweet potatoes are in the back in the kitchen. Um, and sometimes film dries in the bathroom or between two curtain rods, and it really truly is a very DIY process of making work. So the domestic space becomes very rich and interesting as a source of, both living and making. I had to crop out the toilet paper in this image. So I quickly wanted to share that these works are, this work is grounded in research that's, goes beyond just still photography. It includes both experimental cinema and also like alternative photochemical practices that have happened like in the film world for that have been part of the film world for a while. So I situate my work in the context of a long history of artists whose work is committed to exploring texture, material, and the substrate of film itself as something that isn't like retro fetishism, but is more about relationality. So Kim Knowles, I'm sorry, I'm going in the wrong direction. Woo. Kim Knowles' book, Experimental Film and Photochemical Practices, was a really important part of my research. And Devotional Cinema by Nathaniel Dorsey also guided a lot of the decision-making around language or editing and rhythm in the work. And I like to read this quote quickly, if that's okay. I'll keep it short after this. Devotion is not an idea or a sentiment. Rather, it is an opening it is the opening or the interruption that allows us to experience what is hidden and to accept with our hearts our given situation. When film does this, when it subverts our absorption in the temporal and reveals the depths of our own reality, it opens to us a fuller sense of ourselves and our world. It is alive as a devotional form. So this idea of devotion has carried into my still photographs, which is the work that's the center of the Silver Eye exhibition. This is an image called To Become Dust that sings its melody to the night. Here's a close-up. This was a mistake image. It's the beginning of the roll where you move past the roll to get to the actual image, but it became the central image of the work. What appears to be a light leak is actually, what appears to be a black hole is actually a light leak, and what appear to be all these textured stars or some microscopic organisms actually the coffee-based processing. As One They Quake is also a similar, from the same processing, but these photographs are taken on a reversal film stock, so it inverts the way we typically see. The day becomes night, and clear sky, just pulses with textures from the coffee-based developer. And through this work, I'm interested in challenging the habitual ways we not only relate to ecology and land, but also what an image does, and conveys. And I'm also really curious about how to make an image that is self-aware instead of just capturing and pushing beyond the form of documentary photography. The breath within the breath is a contact print. It is a single image on a continuous image on a roll of 35mm film that I took by placing the camera on my chest and keeping the shutter open and turning my body in a 360, so complete circle, timed with my breath. I took this image on the fall equinox in the clearing in the forest at dusk. Here is a close-up. The zigzag is actually a line made by the full moon caught on film because of the movement of my body. Some install shots and the artist book I mentioned earlier. So the artist's book is a scanned and enlarged version of the breath within the breath contact print, the single roll of film, and it's about 30 feet long. And I invite viewers to kneel or sit down on the ground to view the image. Some details from the book. The project Devotions also includes a series of 5 prints called In Search of First Fire. These are images of moths encircling a light at night. I'm exploring this idea of right cycles, rhythms, and revolutions in the work. So the moon, my own body moving in a circle, but also this idea of circumambulating a thought or a concept or a philosophy. So mods have become central to this project and are taking me in a new direction. And I'm currently filming and photographing them at my residency in Virginia. And this is exploring an ancient Sufi parable about mods and flames. This image is made from a single frame of 16mm film. So this is the full moon. It's called Puncture. Devotions also includes what I am currently calling a series of haikus, which to me is this idea of, exploring concrete poetry and visual poetry through collages that are made on a single sheet of fiber paper in the darkroom. So I'm collaging some of these, and I'm excited to see where these go. They're displayed in various different configurations as triptychs and diptychs and as singles. They're all made from single frames of the 16mm film. I just included this in there because the other day I was volunteering at the garden in my residency, and I'm currently developing film with plant-based developers and weeds. So we'll see where that will go. That's it. And I will now stop sharing.
Thank you so much for talking to us about your work in Pando and your connecting between ecological concerns and devotional practice. That was wonderful. Thank you. So next, I'm very excited to welcome Clare Sheedy. Clare lives and works in Pittsburgh, PA, where she teaches art to children and works at a downtown box office. And in her work, Sheedy explores the tactile edges of perception and presence, incorporating photographs and braille to complicate boundaries between knowing and unknowing. Her work invites a shared attentiveness between viewer and artist, forming an intimacy through language, touch, and feeling. Sheedy's processes are about surrendering to the act of imaginative extension, where senses and self both solidify and liquefy in the presence of the work. So welcome, Clare. Thank you. I invite you to share your screen and start your presentation.
Thank you, Helen, and thank you, Leo, and everyone and Sobia. That was so wonderful. So I'll share my screen. Give me 1 second. I'm on an iPad and I'm not good with this stuff. Oh, I have to go back. Okay. So this should be good. If it's not, someone can interrupt me.
Perfect, Claire, thank you.
Great. I can't see you guys. I could just see my screen. So for this presentation, I want to talk, about the work in the show, but situate it in the things that brought me to it, and also what I'm sitting with right now. Because my whole practice, I kind of just consider it like, I don't know, just like rubble of existing, I guess. Like, like when someone's running and like the dust kicks up off their running, it's like that. So, and it's hard to talk about a light in the room a little bit. So like collecting things is pretty important to me. And this is one image that influences like my whole life and this work and everything. So this is one image that I have. And my great-grandmother took this. This is what the work in at Silver Eye looks like up. There's 9 images. I took them on a Yashica twin lens. And there are 5 pieces of writing. The dismembered piece of writing, I consider like one piece of writing, but it could be 2. So, and in the presentation, I'll read, most of this will just be me reading things that have influenced me. I'll read the piece soon. And I guess I should say, to situate, like I consider the culmination of this work and everything that has gone on and is going on is just kind of a practice of surrender and devotion. So I'll read some things to offer something to you, to take something away from this, and then also like open up to how things gestate through me. And I mean, reading is really important to my practice. The weight of my head pushing down on the floor opens my mouth. It's not the mouth that wants to open necessarily. It's the gravity, the pressure, the force. Nothing is sharp enough to disengage the butterfly's path from erraticism, and freedom is this September field, covered this far by tree shadows, through which this child chooses to run, until he chooses to stop, and it will be so hereafter. All of the skin exposed directly to the killie cry of the kingbird, the buzzing of the grasshopper sparrows, those calls merging with the dawn red mists of crimson steeple bush, entering the bare body then, not merely through the ears, but through the skin, of every naked person willing every event and potentiality of a damp transforming dawn to enter. And this is a way to situate and puncture into how I think about entering the work and everything. Penetration means to enter something, not just to stand outside of it. When we want to understand something, we cannot just stand outside and observe it. We have to enter deeply into it and be one with it in order to really understand. If we want to understand a person, we have to feel their feelings, suffer their sufferings, and enjoy their joy. Penetration is an excellent word. The word comprehend is made up of the Latin roots com, which means together in mind, and prehender, which means to grasp it or pick it up. To comprehend something means to pick it up and be one with it. There is no other way to understand something. And I know that's a long quote, but I finished this reading the other day, and I just thought to include it because of why I, want to include reading things. And also penetration was a word that I think about a lot, but I was really thinking about in this piece, Parts of a Bird. so also the violences of penetration and of rupture, general and opening, and the fantasy of that reality too. So now I'm just going to move through some of the images, or through the images in the show. There is braille in the show. The braille came, that was a decision that happened after I got the mention, because I was like, oh man, I mean, the work is just kind of the footnotes of my processing of being, I guess, and all of that is like a deeply embodied experience. And I read something like John O'Donohue said, like the eyes remind us of our distance from something. And I don't know if I agree with that, but I do feel a tension with photographs where like there's the safety that you can snap back from it. So I wanted, I don't remember how I chose the braille, but it just came, I thought, like, what is a way to really create a tactile oneness of intimacy, and also really challenge myself. A part of my practice is I like to like deprivate my senses, or like create these processes and moments of sensory surrender to create a tension and then an opening. So this was another way for me to do that. And here's a close-up of the braille. So one of the pieces. And I can read the full piece. If any of this goes too long, someone just tell me. Pronouncing and constant is my call. My hand an empty nest for you to lie in. Please, tell me about the killing of the whale. Violet light. How you flamed the harpoon and flew 1,000 shards in blubber, awful meat, thundering somewhere beneath the surface of the skin. Tell me about your window, ovaled and heaving in the simple blankness of the light. Tell me, chunk calls, go out that window, where that dead sea still heaves, that tide incessantly moves, and we incessantly part away. Tell me about your song, and I will bring you mine, sharp, metal, and loud. 3 questions for classification. 1, does she ever sing the same note twice? 2, are the notes slow enough to count or too fast to count? 3, whether and when does she stop to take a breath? Parts of a bird I found in the street, an open metal gut and a mouthful of feathers, with the neck laid down. Auntie says egret where I run to her in the street, and I have no name. Just the sound of this running, and this tongue, pulled back, scaling sound, this sound. It seemed that her voice sounded different in the silver blue night, loud, clear, and gentle. It had arches and curves. She believed she could see her voice and almost catch hold of it. Soon she believed she felt it made an arch over her head and that she was standing directly beneath it. And then this is the dismembered piece of writing, which is split in 2 around the vaginal image. So those last 4 pieces are not translatable in a knowing way for people who don't read Braille. What do I have now? Oh yeah, and then I guess I just wanted to talk about a little bit of the writing practice. Like for my images, my reading and writing stuff is really important in my like background, like creating a soup. But usually when I write, it's not super like collaging, but kind of like I like talk to something. So I'll like be taking notes on books. Usually I work with like a lot of like scientific text. I think it's because I don't really understand it. And I like the language is so, I mean, there's like a hierarchy and a powerfulness to it, but then I like to subvert that and play with these sounds and like open up my tongue in ways I've never like would have otherwise not gone to. But anyway, so for the works that I just read, I was reading a lot of these things and then just like listening to bird sounds, and not to like to open up a surrender, like not to mimic anything or like push forward like a knowledge about these things, but to occupy and create voice. And then I'll try to speed this up, but I guess I just wanted to give another example of what I'm, so like an example of right now what I'm doing. So I have this cool book. It's these anatomical drawings from the 1800s by this guy, George Stubbs, who knew how to dissect animals because he was raised by like a butcher. So, and he was like, he's, you know, a guy that was good at drawing. So he dissected horses and like, and as he was dissecting them, drew these things. So I've been, and the language in this thing is just incredible. So I've been, these are just things I wrote the other day that I'll read, and then I think that's basically it. Two thin muscles in cuts hold them up, ducked, like branches suspended at origin, without a nerve removed. This is the lower part, what we call a complex muscle, free and forming an arc, a fetlock in a sheath of fuchsia, polar and spineless. What do you mean distinction is division, if and only if you cut it up, and tell me where to move, or even how? So all heave to lower in the vein, to see eye lies down to a face, to crawl dumb and blind. I will, anyway. The great silence of being inside an ear. What would it mean to run up against something like this? I see you, open palmed, to the sun, blisters, your mouth moving like an echo, an action that's unmistaking. And then these are just offerings. These are readings. This is what I'm reading right now, if anybody is interested in that. And then these are readings I either finished recently or that were important while I was working on this, the work in the show. And I don't choose really what to read anymore. I just kind of like if something's mentioned in a book I like, I'll just read that. Or my friend suggested these, and these are the ones that I want to read next. So those are just if anyone's interested in those. And I can share this slide as a PDF or something if that would be helpful. Okay, that's all.